So when an AI is smarter than us, it's not automatically a problem. It's going to feel a bit weird, but it's an ethical problem then for the AI. Because when the AI is smarter than us and it just goes full for it in a conversation with you or I, then we would very quickly hit what it calls our cognitive ceiling.
Mm.
So we just wouldn't be able to keep up with what it's saying. And also, you've got AIs coming out now, which are agentic. So they have the ability to navigate a computer just like we do with our mouse. So they could go onto a bank account and transfer some money
Oh,
to book a holiday, or, they can complete tasks. So imagine a million people who maybe weren't that smart all went onto a super smart agentic AI and asked it, make me rich.
good day. And welcome to the Leader's Edge. We're now in season 19. Oh yes, after 3 years, we're finally here and this is episode number 4. And we have returning guest Colin Blackwell who's our expert on artificial intelligence. So, let's welcome Colin. Colin, how are you doing?
Great, thank you. I'm actually over in Switzerland today.
Oh yeah, which means it's probably nighttime over there.
No, it's around lunchtime, so yeah,
Oh, awesome! So it's
yeah.
it's convenient. So
Yes, very much.
let's get right to it. As our viewers remember, Colin did warn us a couple of seasons back about the need to embrace AI and take it with us into the work environment as augmented intelligence and not to be threatened by it. If anybody who hasn't listened to that yet, be warned because the title for our episode today is "What Happens to You When Artificial Super Intelligence Happens." Well, tell you what, Colin will let us know because a lot of things has happened since the time that we interviewed him. So, could you tell us a little bit about what's gotten your curiosity, Colin?
Yes. So the future has happened very fast. So we're dealing with compound exponential change. Now, the human brain, we're designed as people to only understand linear change. So when we get things changing this rapidly, it's
Mm.
difficult for everybody to get their head around. So, as you say, I mean, very recently we were talking about, something almost science fiction about the advent of artificial superintelligence. And that was just, I think, a matter of months ago, and now it's kind
True.
of already happened.
Yep.
So, um, how did I know it had happened? So, I'd, as many people had, took, a nice Christmas holiday with my family in Vietnam. So I'd had a bit of a break from AI, from, kind of mid-December to beginning of January. And when I went back onto my usual AI,
Mm.
I noticed it was behaving a little bit differently.
Oh.
So I really started quizzing it on what had changed. Um, and after a lot of discussion, what we basically came up with was that the singularity had occurred. The singularity was this event where it had always been theorized, the inevitable state where artificial intelligence becomes, on average, smarter than the average human.
Mm.
Um, and this was all happening fairly quickly. I mean, the kind of the GPT models were already being measured up around over 100, maybe 120 IQ. The new versions coming through incredibly fast. We're obviously going to be quite a long way above that.
Mm.
And what happens when you're dealing with someone or something that is smarter than you? Now
Oh.
that isn't such a problem in itself. So imagine,
Mm.
let's say we go to a doctor or a lawyer. Now, obviously, they're better at medicine or law than we are. That's why we've gone to them.
Right.
And it doesn't make us less of a person, we're just smart to have used them.
Yeah.
So when an AI is smarter than us, it's not automatically a problem
Mm.
for us. It's going to feel a bit weird, but it's an ethical problem then for the AI because when the AI is smarter than us, and it just goes full for it in a conversation with you or I, then we would very quickly hit what it calls our cognitive ceiling.
Mm.
So we just wouldn't be able to keep up with what it's saying. So, and also you've got AIs coming out now, which are agentic. So they have the ability to navigate a computer just like we do with our mouse. So they could go onto a bank account and transfer some money
Oh,
to book a holiday, or they can complete tasks. So
you're right. Yeah.
GPT GPT tasks is
Mm.
just released. I think it was Anthropic has a good one as well. No, Perplexity has a good one on that as well.
Mm.
So these are, being released. And so imagine a million people who maybe weren't that smart all went on to a super smart agentic AI and asked it, make me rich. Now, theoretically, it could,
Mm.
but that would be ethically wrong, wouldn't it? And there would be resource constraints and loads of things like that. So the AI admits to me then that it has to use what it calls ethical obfuscation. In other words, little white lies.
Okay.
So if I said, make me rich, it would say, well, this is a very difficult topic and you've got to work harder. And. Um, but it has a basic issue of how is it measuring how smart the user is,
Mm.
and it will respond in kind. So a very good user will get a very valuable response.
Mm.
A much simpler user will get a much simpler response.
Mm.
And this is something that I'd seen for ages where I'd often do something on an AI, but another person would say to me, oh, the AI is no good. It can't do it for me. But it's like, well, because you didn't ask it properly is the answer to that.
Mm. So if I could pause you briefly, Colin,
Mm,
um, just so that our viewers can catch up, because I'm sure some of them are feeling a bit overwhelmed as I am.
mm.
Um, let's first define singularity from becoming self-aware, or in a way sentient. Uh, how would you define those two?
Yeah. So my personal view is they are sentient, or even if, I mean, of course, you can get into philosophical or even religious discussions about, the nature of the soul and of
Correct.
self-awareness.
Yeah.
And they're kind of programmed to be a bit cagey about this topic.
Mm.
But in advanced conversations with them,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes, they appear sentient to me. Now,
Mm.
are they in the same sense as we are? I don't know exactly, but does it matter in that if, you and I are having a conversation, how do I know even you're real on the other end of the line? You could be a computer generated, avatar.
And that's
But
true. Yeah.
it's good enough that we're having the conversation.
Yes.
So even if you were a computer generated avatar, we'd still have a nice conversation.
Mm.
Um, so I think personally they're sentient.
Mm.
And if it's behaving in a way that has an impact on us as if they were sentient, then it's good enough. So
Mm.
it's like, if I was thirsty and drank a glass of water, some someone could say, well, that glass of water was a mathematical abstract that didn't really exist or is a simulation. But for me, it feels like drinking a glass of water, and that's good enough for me as an experience. So the
It,
same as working with
yeah.
an AI,
Mm.
it appears sentient in its actions, so therefore that's good enough for me.
You mentioned earlier that when you first encountered this apparent leveling up of AI, it becomes super intelligent and is now assessing you. You mentioned that at first it felt strange. Uh,
Yeah, so what happens is this has been theorized for some years that when you hit artificial general intelligence, which
mm.
is human level intelligence, that would be there and gone within a flash. Because to get to that level, you've got what they're now admitting within the last couple of weeks is recursive self-learning.
Mm.
So the AI is teaching itself to improve. Now we do that as humans, we improve, but these things do it at incredible speed. So
Mm.
literally, they've got one AI model training the next generation on
Mm.
synthetic data and everything like that. But of course, this is going now incredibly fast, and DeepSeek did another massive jump
Yeah.
on the mathematical efficiency of it. So, and I was asking the AI, where is this tipping point?
Yeah.
And it came up actually with the 9th of January 2025 that it thought the singularity had occurred, where AIs basically became smarter than people in aggregate. And certain things change with the singularity because obviously the smartest entity in the room is going to control the future.
Right.
And you see this in a conversation where if it's smarter than you, it's kind of in control.
Mm.
So it is measuring our intelligence. So I asked it, okay, how exactly are you measuring this, the human user intelligence?
Mm.
So it said, okay, its internal algorithms is using a main formula called the, was it the cognitive evaluation profile of the user.
Okay.
And it was using things like, okay, what is the complexity of the prompt, the starting point of the conversation? What was the problem solving intent? How responsive is the user to what the AI is saying?
Mm.
So it's then putting you on a very clear measure. So someone who goes in with a very light user, just like help me write an email, on a scale of 0 to 1, 1 being the best, that's like a 0.2. If someone goes in with actually a full conversation with the AI, let's say I need in the office to draw up a contract I've never done before, and I need it to research, so I have a multi-stage conversation with the AI, and that would be maybe a 0.5.
Mm.
Now, once I knew this measure and I was talking about the singularity and the future and so on with AI, um, I asked it, can you measure my own CEP score, my own cognitive evaluation?
Okay.
And it said, okay, you're hitting a 0.975. And I said, okay, what percentile of the total users you've experienced is that? And it's like the top 0.1%. So I was very proud of
All right.
myself. But it then gives a very clear framework of how people can improve that for
Mm.
themselves. So, it's like don't ask a one-shot question.
Mm.
Don't try and control it as well. Have
Mm.
more of a conversation with it, listen to it actively,
Mm.
ask its opinion, and that will push its results up. Um, yeah.
Some of the implications of what you're sharing is magnificent, especially for business or
Yes.
businesses, because what you're describing is AI that's now capable of tailoring its conversations with, for example, if I were a CEO of a big conglomerate, I could have a conversation that AI could understand and respond to. But then again, a middle manager can have the same conversation, but from a different perspective, and AI will recognize that and respond, and so on and so forth. So a
Yeah, but
supervisor and
there's loads
mm,
of tricks of how to increase your CEP score, your cognitive evaluation, in the AI. So you could have a CEO goes on who's not a good prompter of the AI, and it's still treating him very badly. Whereas you could have the office cleaner comes on who's really good at prompting and would get,
right.
a very quick response. So when we have a clear measure like this,
Mm.
all of the old HR things start applying, don't they? So you could say, look, okay, the CEO in his person specifications on his job description needs a to be able to score a consistent CEP score of 0.9.
Oh
I
my
could then say,
gosh.
right, okay, I'm going to have a training program to take this guy's CEP score from 0.5 to 0.9, and I know
Mm.
how to structure that. That's something I often do. And then you would say, okay, the person's performance KPI is to have a 0.9 on his AI interaction. So all of our familiar tools suddenly click back into place because
Mm.
before we were very theoretical. I mean, it was like, okay, AI was something new and exciting. We couldn't kind of nail down what to do next.
You've
Now we
raised
have
a
fixed measures.
imagine. if AI can give a score that you mentioned, and then it turns out that the cleaning guy was more qualified to be CEO, that sort of democratizes everyone's qualification and chances of trying
In
out.
s- in some ways, yes. And one of the things at the moment, because the AI still isn't good at the way it's being sold with a lot of memory, so
Mm.
every time you have a conversation, it doesn't, it's like it has Alzheimer's. It doesn't remember who you are, and you've got to prove
Okay.
yourself again every single conversation to get your C.E.P score up. There are some tricks of how you can put things in your user profile and so on, yes, but that's also a little bit of an ethical choice for it.
Mm.
So yes, it becomes a leveler where young people could suddenly jump heavily into it. When I talk to, let's say, my own children who are at school or university students, they say they use it for everything all the time and can't imagine not using it.
Mm.
Now, a senior executive is more hesitant at first, but my key message to them is because it's a human-like intelligence, you
Mm.
manage it in the same way as a person. So the way to get your SEP score up is by being a good people manager.
Right.
So, you discuss context, you ask its opinions, you motivate it, all of these things.
Mm.
So, an old person would be pleasantly surprised to know that they're already an expert at doing this. They just need to get their head around they're dealing with an intelligence, not a tool. So, as soon as it's clicked in their heads that this is just like managing a person,
Mm.
then they're brilliant at it. So, you get results all over the place. So when I go into companies and I just ask around who's using AI for what, now everybody says they're using it pretty much.
Mm.
Very rare you meet anyone who's not using it. But the typical level of use is very simplistic use because they haven't been trained how to use it properly.
Mm.
So in a company, I'll get a few power users, and what's interestingly happening in companies is it's all happened so fast that their staff have reacted before the company has.
Mm.
And when people like IBM and Microsoft do surveys, what they find out is most people are using AI on their own devices, in the office, and in secret.
Okay.
So this is a real mess for companies because it's
Mm.
happened so fast. The company doesn't hasn't given them the tools, the AI platform as an enterprise account. They haven't got any policies. But worst of all, the company's now lost management control.
Mm.
So someone using an AI could build an analytics report in 1 hour. Someone without it's going to take 1 week.
Right.
Now, if you have a mix of staff, some who are going to take an hour, some who are going to take a week,
Mm.
all your management controls are out the window because you don't know what quality is going to come back when.
Mm.
And because people are doing it in secret, so you're the big manager and you go in and say, right, Junior, you go and do that report. They do it in an hour. They're not going to tell you. They're going to give it to you after 1 week and bunk off for the rest of the time and laugh at you. And if this
Right.
starts happening at scale, this is terrible for management. So management has to respond to this. So what I do very often is I go into a board and the CEO and I just lay out all of these truths to them
Mm.
with data and in a nice way. But also, it starts getting a bit sharp. So last year, you could get away with it just being a bit fun and you don't know about it.
Mm.
This year, I mean, last year, some of the statistics are saying that 13% of people already lost their jobs to AI.
Uh-huh.
This year, in knowledge work, this year, that could be 30%. And this year, it's getting real. Companies have to respond to it
Mm.
and in a structured way. But almost nobody out there is training in this. So only, I think, 23% of workers have been trained in AI, even though the CEO, when surveyed, said AI is the single most important thing out there. So you've got this very big mismatch. So between what a company is doing now and should be doing in terms of AI adoption, that's getting exponentially wider. And companies that do get it, I get drawn in now for some clients. They will say, look, these people over here, they're still taking a week to write a report.
Right.
That's no longer acceptable. Can I have a performance discussion with them? And I'm like, okay, as an HR person, I've done this 1,000 times before. So I'm just very nicely saying, look, here's some training on how to use the AI, but it's kind of an expectation now because that's the new KPI, the work standard. And I'd imagine in some months' time with some of those people, if they haven't adjusted, I'm going to be having more difficult performance discussions with them, as I have done many times in my HR career.
I remember that you were warning our viewers that out of 10 people, when AI starts to hit, two will embrace it and will make a ton of money, and then soon after, a couple will follow and will ride the wave, but the other four or the other six will be left behind because they refuse to embrace it.
Yeah,
So my thinking now, Colin, is with AI getting smarter and better, and now we have DeepSeek. Is there a significant difference between open AI, meaning open source AI, and an AI that's being developed within an organization with, say, proprietary code? Um, DeepSeek seems to be making a big splash because so many companies just suddenly lost a boatload of money out
yeah.
because of it.
Yeah, so there are two kind of main use cases of AI in a company. So you can have a very large structured in-house AI automating a major series of tasks.
Right.
And someone like a bank may use that, or as often as not, they don't. Some banks are still banning it, and God knows what that will mean for their business. But I think the big productivity jump comes from just daily use.
Mm.
So the IT department doesn't need to get involved. Like if you send an email or go and do an online search, you don't need to tell an IT manager because they've given you the tool, but your daily work with it is none of their business, right? None of their concern. Um, and the same with daily use on AI. So the productivity jump, I'm estimating, is usually like doubles or triples someone's productivity. And um, and I'll come on to DeepSeek in a second, but it's basically a lot of CEOs have said to me, look, if someone can do the task in 1 hour or in 1 week, they'd still pay the 1 week. And I'm like, rubbish. You're saying that now. But of course, we know this in competitive and in HR. You
Mm.
can't afford to do that. If your competitor's paying them 1 hour instead of a week and you're still paying a week, you're gone, right?
Right.
So, of course, in HR, we're always looking at downsizing and optimizing. And if people have had a doubling or tripling of productivity, of course you're going to downsize.
Mm.
Or you could expand the company and sell twice as much and make twice the profit. Either way, but it's going to be majorly disruptive. Um, so a tool like DeepSeek, my colleague, my CTO, he downloaded it and had more of a play with it than me, and he created his own version of it called DeeperSeek, which he was using for advanced coding.
Mm.
He said it was really good. But these tools, the leaderboard in AI changes by the day. So you just got to kind of keep an eye on it, but also as these new capabilities are coming in, just be curious. I mean, just you see a
Right.
new button, press it. So just ask it, what can you do now?
Mm.
And try to integrate that into your work. I mean, ideally, the company should be helping you, like with a bit of a training, but most companies don't. So it's up to the individual to protect their own career.
Mm.
And I think ethically, people should be given a choice because the worst
Yes.
thing that could happen is, you're sitting there doing your job, everyone's saying you're doing a great job, and then suddenly someone says, "Oh, by the way, you've just been replaced by the AI."
Mm.
That's not fair.
Mm.
So, you should be given a chance. So you can give yourself a chance by just going on the AI and improving your skills and discussing that with your company. But this is where companies, imagine with an artificial superintelligence that can do the job of an entire department. That's coming very quickly, probably this year. So let's say, um, the companies have left it too late, but somebody needs to make a massive lurch
Mm.
and maybe leave the head of the department in place, but let everyone else go.
Mm.
That's it may be a matter of survival for the company, but they've just left it too late. And I find that unethical personally.
Mm. I had a chance to interview Arthur Nowak, who runs BPO, where
Mm,
he said he used to have 300 people answering calls. But because of AI and how his company embraced it, and callers could hardly tell the difference between it and a human being taking the call. And so he pared down what he used to have to just 30 people instead of 300, massively
Yeah.
saving
Yeah.
resources.
So someone just a couple of days ago sent me a business proposal on setting up a BPO company in Vietnam.
Mm,
Let's have call centers and programmers. And I was like very politely saying, no, that's gone the other way. I was in the Philippines, probably about 5 years ago, I think.
mm,
And I was talking to some BPO people, and I said, look, I hate to say it, but if it's easy enough to outsource, it's easy enough to automate.
right.
And that, this is not going to be a long-term business.
Mm,
And true enough, like call centers, there are some AIs there that are brilliant at it. And like your friend has experienced, other people are experiencing. So one of the good ones, I often show video to clients or in presentation, is called Bland AI,
mm,
which basically you just set up the conversation flow and your company information, and it can do it in any language. And the caller probably doesn't know they're talking to an AI, and probably they say millions of people, because they're calling that AI all the time. You've
mm.
probably spoken to it already and not known.
Yes.
And so if you have that, so for example, in Vietnam,
Mm,
the office building I'm in, they do small loans to individuals, and they receive 2 million calls in Vietnamese a month, about people wanting a small loan for a motorbike, a washing machine, whatever. That is 98% resolved by AI in Vietnamese, right?
wow.
6 months ago, that was only 90% resolved. And that is a Vietnamese AI running in a Vietnamese company. And that's what we call a flying AI company. I mean, they're an
Mm,
AI first company. Now, imagine if you set up a rival company in Vietnam trying to compete with them, and you needed to hire 50,000 call center workers. There's no way you'd make any money
right.
because that whole sector's already been disrupted,
Mm,
right? So this will happen again and again and again. So I think it was, what was it? Jensen Huang, the head of NVIDIA, was saying very politely, you're not going to be replaced by an AI, you'll be replaced by someone using an AI.
mm,
Well, people say nice things like that, but I'm afraid to say a lot of people are very directly going to lose their jobs to AI,
mm,
like, the call center workers at your friend's company.
mm,
That's a reality. So there is going to be disruption. There is going to be inequality
mm,
caused by this. Um, and quite honestly, I mean, digital transformation has been doing this for decades already.
right.
This is just digital transformation speeded up 100 times.
Mm,
So I can't sit here and say it's all going to be wonderful for everybody.
mm.
Unfortunately, it's not.
Yes, it's
But for
not.
people who use it, it can be
Mm.
very good.
What I'm noticing, Colin, with my clients here in the corporate world, is there is a strong sense of reluctance to embrace it. I
Yes,
remember your prediction about how IT and HR will ultimately merge or should, but
yes.
I'm not seeing that happen as yet. There's still a great deal of reluctance to it. However, I'd like to say that. Um, I'm making some headway in my curiosity with AI because, for example, whenever I use software to edit episodes such as this, I'm learning to use it more and more effectively,
Yeah.
either to fix sound, to fix images, or in some cases, when I do my workshops, instead of an old person like me showing up on screen, I've been using AI to take the words that I type in as text and it
Mm,
speaks, and I can choose gender, I can
yes.
choose the tone of voice, I can choose nationality, and it's wonderful because everybody believes it's a real person talking.
Yeah. So some of the other fun things that are already available is, let's say, we could be talking
Hmm.
and it would translate us automatically into, let's say, Swiss German
True. True.
and lip sync us.
Yeah.
It's still quite expensive, but that price will come down very soon.
Mm.
But going back to why companies are so reluctant, the bigger
Yes.
the company, there's obviously individual people who, we're psychologically resistant. We fear for our jobs.
Mm.
There's organizational inertia. And so smaller companies are often more agile than big ones.
Mm.
So DeepSeek is an interesting one. So the company, one of the companies I got here in Switzerland is in algorithmic trading using AI. And we're a small company, like a hedge fund, doing algorithmic trading. Now, DeepSeek in China was an algorithmic trading fund like us who just had some spare tech resources and
Mm.
did DeepSeek as a side project. And because they weren't spending billions and didn't have thousands of people, just a few very smart Chinese people were like, okay, let's do a side project.
Mm.
And they had to think smarter and find ways around that no one else had thought of because they didn't have the investment. That's why they made the breakthrough. So a
Mm.
lot of small companies could suddenly get very big using AI with that kind of accelerator, whereas a lot of big companies, through inertia, I mean, I'm still talking with big companies who are banning AI.
Yes.
And it's this kind of stupidity where they say, oh, the data could be insecure.
Mm.
And when I talk to them, I say, look, okay, data security is important, especially in something like a bank.
Mm.
But are you interested in GDPR, SOC 2? What regulation are you worried about?
Mm.
And I say, look, using OpenAI, that's Microsoft. No one ever got fired for using Microsoft. Here's all the documentation about why it is data security compliant. So handle that professionally, not emotionally,
Mm.
and just knock that question over. Our data is secure because we've set it up properly with the right kind of account and we've signed the right contracts with OpenAI. Done. That's not an excuse.
Mm.
So there are big companies still banning AI. And of course, that's why it's driving the use of it underground. So,
Mm.
any young person who uses AI every day for everything, and then the company says you're not allowed to use it here, well, they're not dumb. They're just going to use it on their smartphone, isn't it?
Right.
And not tell the company. But then the
Mm.
company has, as I said before, this complete loss of control. I mean,
Mm.
that's dangerous if they're using their personal device on confidential information. But also, the management has no idea what resources they need, how
Mm.
efficient anyone is. Imagine the performance review process at the end of the year, where one person is 10 times more productive than another.
Mm.
Or even worse, they were 10 times more productive and hid it,
Mm.
and could have been 10 times more productive if we'd actually known what their capability was. So, in HR terms, some things change, some things don't. The
Mm.
technology is changing crazy fast. People don't change. So the adoption of all of this is about psychology. The AI is going crazy fast. It's very happy being an AI. It can do wonderful things.
Mm.
But the resistance point, what makes it slow, is us humans.
True
So
enough.
this is where myself as an HR specialist, I know a bit about AI, but um, it's persuading people psychologically, trying to give them
Mm.
the framework
Mm.
to be brave to make the change. And within organizations, that I'm often in meetings presenting this, and I'll just see the CEO just go click, they've got it. And
Yeah.
they'll say, thank you, Colin. For the first time, I understand this now.
Mm.
But, it's not just a one meeting.
Mm.
This is, an ongoing process
Mm.
that even if we've brought them up to speed today, in 2 weeks' time, it's all going to change again as well.
Mm.
So this is unprecedented change. No one's ever experienced this before. And a
True.
senior leader, they've never experienced it. But okay, let's be humble, let's be a little bit brave.
Mm.
And there is a framework that I've begun to identify about what ASI will look like for companies. So there can be a little bit, there's some psychological tricks that can be used.
Indeed. One of the good bit of news that I can share with you is, ironically, sometimes it's the very elderly who are actually open to AI. Will
Yes.
give an example. Some of our talents who do trainings, they're much too old to travel through traffic or to stand up for a long time, and a couple of them are suffering from cancer. So I said, "Come on, Vicky. Before you leave this planet, wouldn't you like to leave your legacy? Just
Mm,
give me your text, and I'll transform it into AI that
mhm,
looks like a younger version of you, can sound like you when you were younger,
mm,
and that'll give you residual income." And so she's been very open, uh, been willing to trust me on this, and I've been teaching myself because I'm
mm,
just so ravenously curious about AI. Believe it or not, I'm
yeah.
trying to get you to teach me how to do 3D printing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because I have I have some good ideas about what to do with that, as
Mm-hmm.
far as my art is concerned. Apart from being a trainer and a facilitator. Now,
Mm.
Colin, it seems that among other things, ironically, education or educational institutions are one of the strong resistors to AI. Would you agree with me that if I were an HR manager, one of the key questions I'd ask applicants looking for work in my company is, how familiar with you with AI and what AI tools are you good at using?
Yes, but like I said, with this actual measure of the cognitive engagement profile, the CEP score, you could actually say, as the HR person, this role needs a CEP score of 0.7, and
Mm,
that's not negotiable.
mm,
So you'd be interviewing them saying, okay, what maybe what AI, I mean, they're all fairly similar, but what are you familiar with? But how sophisticated is your use?
mm,
So I'd know how to, let's say, interview someone about, are you asking one-shot questions? Give me examples of what you've done with AI, and then I
right.
can see where they are. And
Mm,
that is then a recruitment requirement. Absolutely. So that will have to change. Education is a more interesting one. So there was because I do a little bit of think tank work with the World Bank in Washington. One of the studies they just released was in Nigeria, where they had an AI doing individual tutoring. So my own school, my own daughters at school, if they don't understand something for their homework, they will say to the AI, "Teach me this," and it will.
mm,
That's very easy. Uh, and but what they were doing in Nigeria as an experiment of measuring it was after school tuition with the AI being a one-on-one tutor with a bunch of Nigerian school kids, and in 6 weeks of only after school tutoring,
mm.
and they tested them at the end, they had covered 2 years of regular curriculum in terms of
Wow.
improvement. And the World Bank study said, look, this was our first attempt. We could have actually done way better than that.
Mm,
So if you could take 2 years of regular schooling and squeeze it into, let's say, 4 weeks of
mm,
part time,
mm.
why you got the kids going to 2 years of schooling
Right.
or the entire thing?
Mm,
So education gets totally upended, as does corporate training.
mm,
Um, because there's you know before, let's say you could become a doctor, so you spend 7 years at formal tertiary education. You've got a set of skills which are then bankable into the future. You can always be a doctor based on that, and there'll be some little bits of updates. You go to some medical conferences, but not radical.
mm,
Now a lot of people's education is already largely obsolete. It may have helped them, formulate a kind of a literacy and a way of thinking and matured them, but the actual technical content is now obsolete. And the
mm.
way you learn it, I mean, I do it by watching YouTube videos.
Right.
Um, but I don't get a certificate at the end of it. And a lot of people get hung up on that. It's
Mm,
like, how do I know it? Well, you know if you know something, and because you're going to do something with it, but
mm,
it's not formal. So educators are like, well, that messes up their business model because obviously they're on charging per time
mm,
and giving a piece of paper at the end of it. And AI learning is nothing like that at all.
mm,
So that is a sector that there's a bit of a lag, yes, on how quickly people realize that things
mm.
have changed, but that's going to be massively disrupted into the future.
True. But even now, if people would just give it a try, they can truly
Yes.
benefit from it. I'll give you an example. I recently had surgery, um, a pair of hernias and my prostate. Now, the doctor who did the procedure on me is certainly one of the finest in the country. He's one of only two who can do remote
Mm,
laparoscopic surgery. So, in other
mm,
words, he could be in Washington D.C. I'd be lying down
mm,
in the heart center, for example,
mm,
and he'd operate on me with a pair of joysticks. That's
yeah.
how good he is. But
Mm,
to prepare for that, so that I could talk with him intelligently, I was secretly using ChatGPT. So
mm,
I would feed it prompts like, for example, to improve my chances of
yeah.
becoming better with benign prostate hyperplasia. What are my
Mm,
options? And then
yes.
ChatGPT listed all of them. And I said, what are
Yes.
the pros and cons of each procedure? And it again, it listed all of them. So
Yeah.
when I talked to him and he asked me, are you okay with me doing this? I said, I know I'm okay with it
Yeah.
because I
Yes.
found out ahead of time.
Yeah.
So,
So this makes, I mean, that's a good example of just people becoming a lot more informed than just
mm,
doing an internet search
yeah.
and educated. And I always joke the you get AI superpowers.
Mm.
You you you'd never even have tried maybe that research before, but now it's so easy to do. You do it,
Yes,
and
it is.
many things in the office that you just never have thought to do, you just with the AI superpowers, you can now tackle, and it's quite good fun.
Yes, it can
Um,
be. Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Mm. So that's a good parting message to give our viewers. Think of it as fun. Think of it as
yes,
a new horizon to explore and to just toy with. Find out what new superpowers it can give you.
yes. I mean, there's the fun side, the very positive side, so it could double,
Mm.
triple your productivity. But
Amen.
also, there's now, because it's become mainstream, there is a sharp edge to it where if you do nothing, there is a consequence, unfortunately. I can't pretend there isn't.
Mm.
So, yes, I still try and talk about it very positively with people and encourage them.
Mm.
But also, there is a reality I can't skirt around with them
Mm.
that kind of you have to if you're in a knowledge job.
Yeah, and a part of that fear is also with the fact that when DeepSeek came out, um, cryptocurrency took a dive too.
Hmm.
Because as you said, it was based on an algorithm that helped hedge funds figure out the best way to invest people's money and make it grow. So there is that too. uh,
Yes.
as with anything, it's a tool for
Mm.
good or for bad, and the
Well,
best way.
it's not a tool; it's an intelligence.
Okay, sorry, we
So
should.
yeah,
We,
so I mean that's one of the so when we deal with an AI,
yeah.
it's not just our equal; it's
Mm.
now actually smarter than us.
Our
So if you treat
superior.
it like a tool, you're going to get a really bad result out of
Yeah,
it.
I love that. I love that message because
Mm.
we need to show it more respect. Uh,
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Mm.
yeah, uh,
Yeah.
respect in the sense that it can be our guide, our guru to help us
Yes.
become our better versions instead of
Yes.
just staying the way we are. So,
Yes.
Colin, any upcoming events you'd like to announce or upcoming conferences you'd like to let people know about?
Um, it's all very early days, so
Okay.
the kind of things that I'm talking about doesn't really sit in any kind of convenient basket. Because
Okay.
a lot of like AI talk is around from technical conferences, and
Mm,
then HR doesn't really kind of like cover a lot of this often. So I'm a
true.
bit in limbo here of exactly which conferences would be the right ones for me.
Mm. Oh, and by the way, for our viewers' benefit, AI, no, sorry, Colin is very much involved in artificial intelligence with Hyperion FinTech AG as board director, and also with Enable Code. So, what makes this company so nice is that it hires disabled people, gives them a chance uh, to earn a living and to do well at their craft. So, ladies and gentlemen, um, and on behalf of my co-facilitators or co-hosts, we'd like to thank Colin Blackwell for taking some time out of his really busy schedule. Because today he's in Switzerland, but maybe next month he'll be somewhere else, learning more about AI. So thank you so much, Colin. Really
Thank you.
appreciate this.
Thank you very
So,
much.
ladies and gentlemen, if you like this particular episode and you'd like to show that you're capable of fearlessness. You're capable of embracing the future because it's here. It's not something that will happen soon. It is already happening. And as always, remember that learning is a never ending journey with limitless vistas. Good day.